Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the World of Gaming. And boy, what a week! What a week! A lot of aftermath of the big Xbox business update last week. So it's gonna be an awesome show. We have a lot to talk about. But first, Dutch, I want to welcome, of course, our awesome community. I see the chat is already filling up with a lot of familiar names. A big welcome to you guys, and of course, a big welcome to everyone who listens after the fact, either here on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, wherever you're listening. Welcome. And Dutch, big welcome to you. How you doing, my man?
Yes, welcome, and welcome to the midweek community as well. Dual streaming again because there is news, but it's relatively light. So if we try to do this over two shows, it would probably be even later.
Yeah.
So I'm doing awesome otherwise. Just busy with work. Been very tired. I fell asleep on the sofa yesterday when I got in and woke up just after midnight. So that wasn't how I wanted to spend my night. But I'm good otherwise.
Good to hear. So, we are going to have a fun show here. We have this week, Dutch. We need to make some room at the end of the show for the community questions because we got a lot this week and some really good ones. So I can't wait for that. But first, of course, again, welcome to everyone in the chat. Let us know what you guys have been playing, of course, in both chats. And Dutch, what kept you busy, man?
Yeah, I've been dibbling and dabbling in a few bits this week, just to kind of bide the time over to Rebirth. So I've been on Flight Sim again. I downloaded. God, that took a while. You know, Flight Sim, with all of the mods that I have and all of the updates that they've had, is just shy of 300 gig.
300 on console.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
But everything's installed. I literally this is the only time ever I've had to leave it updating overnight before I could play it.
Yeah.
That's the only time, the only game, because Microsoft's inbuilt update system on Flight Sim is the slowest thing known to man.
Yeah, you get like 20 Mbits or so max.
It goes 20 and 1.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
1.
So
that took a while.
It's basically the same like in the PC store, bro. Like every game I download in the Xbox PC Game Pass store is like 20 max for some reason. So
yeah, it's mad. But it took a while to update that. But when I did, I got loads of my planes downloaded again. I got some skins for some of the ones that Microsoft have added on there. And looking forward to some of the new mods as well that are getting made currently.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite planes that are being made, but these modders take about a year, 2 years to fully craft these aircraft. So hopefully I'll see them soon, and then we can kind of start playing around with them. But I've been enjoying getting back into it. It's a nice chill sim that I can just go on to, have a fly around and like waste hours of my life flying about for a while. So that's been nice. I've also been playing a little bit of Halo again recently. I played some multiplayer the other night with a few of the lads from the community. And what else have I been dabbling into? I played Alan Wake. I started Alan Wake. I haven't been back on it yet, man? Because I've been too tired to continue with that game. You need to be in the right mind frame to play a game like that.
I had the exact same thing with Alan Wake. It is a phenomenal game, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like, it's really not the game I want to play when I get home, exhausted from work, after taking the kids to bed, and just want to relax a little on the couch. You know, Alan Wake's not the game. Like, but once you get to it, it really the atmosphere is phenomenal, and the story is really good, and so yeah.
Yeah, it is a fantastic game, and it's a beautiful game as well, to be fair.
Indeed.
Beautiful game. The music, the soundtrack to that game is also brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it was after the second chapter, there's an awesome track that plays just after it. I think it's called Wide Awake.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I've searched through the entire soundtrack to Alan Wake, and I think that is by far the favorite one on the soundtrack to it. But great soundtrack, awesome game, awesome, well acted. A few famous faces that I didn't realize was in there. But yeah, great game. It's just like you said, after a long day's work, that's not a game you can sit down and chill with.
Definitely,
it's just not.
Yeah.
So I was just true. Like, you know what it is? I'm just going to put a mindless shooter on. I'm just going to put Halo on. That's what I'm going to do. Right. I'm going to put Flight Sim on because I don't need to think about that. I can just take off and fly around peacefully and then land, and then that's me done.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
What about you, Boxy?
Yeah, I'll get into that in a second. Let me see what the community has been playing. So, where are we? Sith Lord has been playing Forza because it's NASCAR week. Good stuff. Walla Weasel has been playing Close to the Sun and Gotham Knights. Good call, man. I really enjoyed Gotham Knights. People were like, yeah, well, it's not Arkham, but it does not try to be Arkham. It's a game on its own, and it's a good one. Has a great story. The characters are fun to play. It's really good, man. Self is back on Fallout 76 and building camps. Good shout. Siki has been playing Apex Legends and Mount and Blade. Also, very good. So, yeah, Dutch, I've been playing mainly Banishers, like crazy actually, and it is so good. I was hoping to be able to finish it before Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out, but I wasn't able to finish it. Actually, I didn't get that much gaming time in over the last 2 or 3 days because work has been just badass crazy, but I played a boatload over the weekend. I'm probably, I would say, 20-25 hours in or so.
How long is it? Do you know?
Not really. A lot of people told me like 25 hours if you focus on
Have you searched how long to beat?
No, I have not. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of the side stuff as well because the writing in that game is just phenomenal.
You're not far away. Far away. Story only is between 20 and 25. Story and some haunting cases and side activities is 25 to 35.
Well, I've not been doing all of those haunting cases, but some. So
yeah,
but
so about you can't be too far off then.
It doesn't feel like it, honestly. Like you can usually tell in the story where with the climax and everything where you are, and it doesn't feel like I'm at the end. It feels like I'm probably midway through or so. So I don't know how far I am, but it's so good, man. It really like it is a combination of Tomb Raider meets A Plague's Tale meets God of War. It's like, think a mixture of those three, and you have Banishers, and it plays really well. It took me a while to get used to the combat. Feels a little clunky at first, but once you get the hang of it, how to properly dodge, and you're basically playing as two characters at the same time, and so you have to switch back and forth, in between the two during combat, because one of the characters is a ghost, the other one is a regular human, and depending on what kind of enemy you fight, some enemies are cursed and can only take damage from the ghost, but once you punch the curse off of them, they can only take damage with the sword, and it's like, and you have to go back and forth with that, and it's awesome.
That kind of reminds me of Hellblade, to be fair, because with Hellblade you have to use your power for certain enemies, otherwise you can't attack them.
Yeah, I didn't get the Hellblade vibes. Like, it's more like, it feels a little bit like, yeah, God of War meets Tomb Raider, like that kind of thing, you know. And a little later, you find a rifle, and you have to use the rifle basically. Well, you can use it in combat, and with some enemies, it makes sense to use it, but it is more like, you know, the slingshot in A Plague's Tale. So you have to solve certain riddles with it, and it's like, man, so fantastic. I did not expect that game to be that good, and I'm really, really enjoying that. So other than that, I have only been playing a little bit on my alley of a little bit more Starfield. I went back. I did not have the chance to check out the latest update, but yeah, it's that has been basically my gaming week. So let us see. A couple of more came in from the community. So we have German Suicide Gamers playing Helldivers 2 on PC. I keep hearing a lot of good stuff about that game.
Same. I'm waiting on it. I'm only waiting on it.
Yeah.
Because I've got a boatload to play and I don't have the time to play really at the moment. Secondarily, funds. Third, I'm waiting for them to really solve those server issues out. The one thing I don't want to do is pick up a game, jump into it, be able to have a few games, then I have server issues, then not be able to play for a day, then be able to play potentially another day. So when they've got on top of that, and I like their responses to it, I don't think it's a topic today, but their response to increasing the servers is they don't want to just overhire people and then have to lay them off later on. They'd rather do things slowly, increase it as and when they can, hire the right amount of people, and put in permanent fixes. That's going to help it. So I like their approach. Even the CEO as well said, I'd rather people didn't buy the game right now than buy it and get stuck on a loading screen or get stuck on server issues. So he sounds like a good CEO, to be fair. He sounds like a good boss. He doesn't want to put people in jeopardy for the
Actually, a couple of statements he made. Just last week, he said something, and I have to paraphrase that now, but he was asked about in-game monetization, and he said you kind of have to earn that. You have to have like content and value there first, and then you can be able you can kind of try to monetize that game, but you have to earn the right to do that. And I really like that statement.
Yeah.
So he, like you said, he sounds like a cool dude. I
hope Sony, you know what it is? I hope Sony don't try and capitalize too much on Helldivers' success and try to get them to put microtransactions in there.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I'm kind of worried about. Hopefully, this obviously it's his game, but it's not his IP.
Yeah.
So it's kind of keep an eye out. But he sounds like a good boss. And ultimately, I think he wants the best for the game and the community and the people that he has under his employ. So
yeah,
fingers crossed for it, and I hope it has a little bit more life into it than just a great launch. That's the only thing with games as service games is always great. It's had an awesome launch, but let's see how it goes after the first few months.
Yeah, true. Let's see how long the breath of Helldivers 2 will be, but yeah, I'm glad it's a success, man. It's been a very long time that Sony released a successful multiplayer game.
Well overdue.
Well overdue. So good stuff there. Let's see. By the way, the poll in the chat is still up. You can still vote with what gameplay we're gonna watch today. Banishes is currently leading this. So good stuff there. What else? Ninja Squirrel has been playing Forza Motorsport and is about to dive into Dead Island 2. Yeah, man, I've seen that. Have you seen that? They kind of stealth dropped Dead Island 2 into Game Pass.
Yeah, like super stealth. They didn't even mention it.
No,
Game Pass didn't mention it. Microsoft didn't mention it.
Yeah.
It was just there.
It was just there. And then today the official Dead Island account tweeted it out first, and it's like suddenly it's there, and it's one of the games I kind of put in the back burner from last year because it came out at a super busy time, so I didn't have the chance to play it just yet. But I always thought like one day I'm gonna get it super cheap in a sale. But now it's in Game Pass, man. And now if I only had the time, I'm playing Banishers. I really want to finish that because I love the story. And I have Final Fantasy pre-installed already, so need to make the days longer somehow, man, to be able to play all those games. So good stuff here, good stuff. So I'm gonna close the poll now, and yeah, I think we're gonna watch some Banishers too.
See, because Final Fantasy Rebirth has had its review period today, and we've got to see the reviews, and we've got to see how well it's doing. My chat's watching some Final Fantasy, so
you already playing?
Sorry, General C in my chat, because General C just said Final Fantasy is a trash franchise. I know he's just giving us that slander.
Gameplay isn't working.
Passion.
Damn it. He hates it with a passion, and I really don't get it because Final Fantasy is awesome, man. So, what? But you're not playing Rebirth just yet, right?
No, I'm not even playing as much as the only thing that's making me potentially try the demo is the fact that you get bits that transfer over to the game.
Yeah, I played the demo, and it's really good. From what I can tell.
Obviously, they've got a new demo out now.
Yeah, they updated it because they had some issues with the quality and performance mode.
Oh no, they added bits to it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, well, I don't care. I'm gonna play the full thing.
Did you play Intermission as well?
I did, yes.
Good, because if you play Intermission and Remake on PlayStation 4 or 5, you get 2 summons.
You would think so, Dutch, but I had this hell of an annoying thing with the cloud save files. So when I moved over from PS4, and I obviously played Final Fantasy Remake on the PS4, I knew that, okay, I have to pay for PS Plus to get the cloud save thing. So I moved it. I got it just before I sold my PS4. I turned on the cloud save thing in the settings, and it said everything's okay. And then I can now sell my PS4. Got my PS5. Turned the PS5 on. Logged in.
Yep.
And none of the save files were there because you have to manually upload them to the cloud.
Yes.
If you have not saved the actual, it only uploads it automatically if you have the subscription to cloud saves and then actually save in the game. But existing ones you have to manually upload, and I did not know that. So I lost all my PS4 save files, and I was so mad I didn't replay it. So I don't think I will get these summons.
Well, you might. If you played them on PS4, I think it still counts.
Let's hope so, man. But I don't have any save files in the cloud, so we shall see. All right.
I've replayed the entire thing on PS5. I haven't actually played Intermission, so I'm going to play Intermission this weekend because it's not long.
No, it's like 2-3 hours, something like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to do that. But yeah, I can't wait for Rebirth now. I can't wait. So this weekend is going to be Intermission, trying out Dead Island 2. I'm not going to give it full effort. I'm just going to try it out, see if I like it. If it is brilliant, I'll keep it installed and play it when I've finished with Rebirth.
Sounds like a plan, man. Sounds like a plan. So, Dutch, let us get into some actual topics.
Yes.
Let's start with something I see a lot of hype around, and probably rightfully so. Elden Ring just released their trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree, the first DLC or expansion for the game. Of course, Elden Ring, a very successful game. It's been almost 2 years since its launch, and we are finally getting that DLC. From Software also came out and gave a short interview, and they also confirmed that they are not ruling out either to make Elden Ring 2 or a second expansion. But for now, we get the first expansion for Elden Ring in June. That was confirmed in the trailer, and I mean, it looks just as good as the main game. So, what did you think, man, about this?
It's obviously substantial because they're charging almost the price of a full game for it. So, so it's obviously substantial. I enjoyed Elden Ring. It was the most user-friendly and casual Souls game there could be. And it was kind of a lot easier for people to get into it that weren't really Souls guys. So I had a little bit more fun on it than most other Souls games I've ever tried. I'll not be picking up the expansion because I'm not the biggest Souls fan anyway. I enjoyed Elden Ring for what it was in my time with it, but yeah, it's ultimately still not for me. I'd be lying to myself. It would just be picking up the expansion for the sake of it.
Bro, FOMO is gonna hit you hard.
It will hit hard, but I mean, it's not like we're lacking things to play. So
that is so true. That is so true. Yeah, well, FOMO is what actually got me into Elden Ring, because way back in the days when the first Souls games came out, Demon Souls and what was the one that they did a remake as a launch title? That was Demon Souls, and then later Dark Souls. So sorry. So I played those, but I kind of dropped out of the From Software and the Souls-ish games. When I became a father, it just felt like I don't have the time anymore to put that it takes to put or that you need to put into those games. So I kind of dropped out of the genre. And when Elden Ring and everyone came out and everyone was super excited, FOMO hit me hard and I got it, and I really did enjoy it. Like you said, it's like. It's a great open world. It was like I was not one. A lot of people were like, "Yeah, best game ever made, masterpiece." I didn't think it was that. The game had its issues. It was a great game. Don't get me wrong, but it also had a few issues that bothered me. Especially towards the middle and end part of the game. A lot of the dungeons felt a little repetitive. Like, I don't know how many times I had to beat a magma worm, and the bosses in the dungeons that you discovered were simply copy pasted. Like,
yeah, I hated the Burger King man.
But yeah.
And the hand. And I really hated the hands as well. The hand spiders.
Yeah. But overall, Elden Ring was absolutely a great game, no doubt. And since June looks relatively light so far, I will probably pick it up. Do you think it will get the same or similar hype like the original release?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It'll be like Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. It's going to go up for Game of the Year category.
Yeah,
I can guarantee it. I can absolutely guarantee it. It'll be up there for Game of the Year.
Yeah, probably. Now we are at this point where we nominate DLC for Game of the Year. Okay.
Yep, we're in that point now. Yeah. Unless he actually does what we've suggested and just create an entirely new category for DLC.
Yeah, that's so true. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, and it's also good to hear that they are considering doing a second one. So, but that will be a while before we hear that. I mean, it took them 2 years to make the DLC, so yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, Dutch, let us talk about Xbox, because of course that has been like the dominating topic in the gaming world of this entire week. We had the business update last week during our podcast, so we talked, of course, directly after that. But we also got a big Phil Spencer interview this week, where he talked about a couple of the things a little bit more in depth with Stephen Chatillo. And then, of course, Xbox announced finally officially what games will and when those games will come over to PlayStation and Nintendo. So basically, what we all guesstimated after the Xbox podcast last week, everyone was.
There was some things that I didn't expect, though. There was some things that I didn't expect.
What didn't you expect, man?
I didn't expect Hi-Fi to miss Switch.
I
did. Now I understand why. Because it does require 60 frames. It does. Because it's a
it does.
Combat
Absolutely.
game.
I think it's a technical thing. The Switch is simply way too outdated, and it wouldn't be able to run properly. Of course, if you look at Hi-Fi Rush and its art style, also being an Asian-based game, it's like it would totally make sense to bring that to Nintendo. There's no doubt about that. But yeah,
Switch
maybe for the Switch 2, probably. Which we will talk about a little later in the show, man, about the Switch 2 and its release date. But yeah, other than that, it's grounded like expected. Sea of Thieves and Pentiment. I was a little surprised that Pentiment is actually getting a physical release also on PlayStation and Nintendo.
And Xbox.
And Xbox, of course, yeah. Wasn't there already a physical version for Xbox? I thought there was a...
No. Hi-Fi and Pentiment are getting physical releases via limited run games.
With Hi-Fi, I've seen... I knew that this was a digital-only release so far. I thought that Pentiment already was a physical on Xbox, but I could be wrong here. It's like...
Yeah. It's good to see both of those games getting physical releases on limited run, though. But that's naturally the way that they're going to go with a lot of these things now. They're going to just team up with limited run games and get them to do the physical releases because they know the actual requirement for the amount of people that want physical releases now is just significantly lower than what people think it is.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. But yeah, Dutch, of course. Basically, we had the same discussion on the social channels than we had after they announced, or even before that, with the rumors. Before they confirmed they will bring 4 games Multiplat. Now it's confirmed it's the exact 4 games that we all expected it to be. What are your thoughts, man? A week has passed now since the business update during the Nintendo Direct. As expected, they announced at least the Nintendo games right after on social. Also, of course, the PlayStation stuff. So, man, now that the dust has settled a little bit, it's official which games come when and why and whatnot. What do you think before we talk about the Phil Spencer interview? About this approach, has anything changed on your thoughts, or how do you feel about it, man?
Yeah, it's nothing really has changed in my thoughts, to be honest. It's 2 smaller titles. The only one that I would have liked really to remain where it was Hi-Fi. because I think it had a chance. Both China
Mhm.
808 had a chance of being a staple,
Yeah,
like an
like a
actual
mascot.
figurehead of the
Yeah,
platform.
yeah,
Because it was successful. He was a really interesting character. He was a character that everybody loved. Great story, great combat, great game all around. It had a real great chance of being a new face of Xbox. But ultimately, they've chosen to put it onto PlayStation and get more people to buy it that way. Now it does. I also don't believe. Ultimately, it boils down to whether or not any of these games do well, as to whether or not they put more games on. I think there's going to be more games onto the platform before the year end, and onto the platforms before year's end. But I do think they will probably keep an eye on it to see what the sales performance is like, as to whether
yeah.
or not it continues porting games over. Ultimately, if Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi, Pentiment, and Grounded don't do well, and they get like sub 1 million out of 200, 300, 120 plus million users across like the platforms, would you really put it over there? Is
Yeah,
that really
it
worth
really
your
depends.
time?
What is the number of sales that they
Yeah,
consider it to be a success?
exactly.
Obviously, obviously, a Pentiment, for instance, will not sell millions and millions of units.
Yeah,
Obviously, but we really don't know where is for them the break-even point where they say, okay, it makes sense business-wise. Because making the ports also costs, of course, money. So you have to
yeah,
break even with that, and you have to take into account the brand reputation that you put on jeopardy by doing something like that. Yeah, that also factors in. So we really don't know what they would consider a success. Is it for I don't know. Let's take Sea of Thieves as an example. Yeah, is it 100,000 players? Is it 500,000? Is it a million? What is the success? But I'm right there with you. I think this is only the beginning. They test the waters with those. I mean, I see a lot of people out there saying it makes sense for a game like Sea of Thieves, yeah, which is obviously an ongoing game, which is games as a service title. It makes sense. You want to have a large player base there. But then, yeah, everything we talked about comes into place. You put in jeopardy that you have like the IGNs and Kotakus of this world writing articles about every game that you will release. Yeah, we will get a
yeah,
lot of articles again once the Shattered Space for DLC drops for Starfield. Is it coming now to PlayStation? Is it? You will get the articles when Indiana Jones hits, and so on. It's this thing that, yeah, really is not helping the platform. If you're an if you're a casual gamer out there and you Google like what to get, Xbox or PlayStation, and you will find all these articles from IGN and so on that tell you, okay, Xbox games are coming now to PlayStation. Will it really incentivize you to invest in Xbox? Yes, you can argue all day long. They still have Game Pass, which is the best value in gaming, which it is,
yeah,
and it will have all these games they won for basically nothing, or well, the price of the subscription, of course. But you know what I mean. And is it but is this enough to grow your ecosystem? Yeah, or will it lead to even less console sales? Yeah, we're seeing this right now. Again, Monster Hunter is skipping Xbox again. Just the other day, we had the confirmation of that. Obviously, big talk right now. Final Fantasy has skipped so far. with Final Fantasy VII Remake and 16 Xbox, and now Rebirth, of course, not available on Xbox. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's these kind of things. And if your console install base is not growing, yeah, or even declining, which is a potential thing that can happen because of the releases of some of your games. Still don't believe that they are stupid enough to bring all games over to PlayStation, but there will be bigger ones coming. Like you said, by the end of this year, it's not going to be only those 4 games. And I would place a bet that the next game is probably a little bit a bigger title. They will test the waters with different kinds of things. They will bring over a single player game here or there, to see how is that doing. They will bring maybe, I don't know, even a Forza or something like that. I don't know what it will be, but yeah, I don't see a world where doing that is going to grow the Xbox console install base. And that's the thing. That's what a lot of gamers out there are afraid of. With potentially declining in install base, are even more publishers going to skip the platform? We don't know, but I think it's a valid concern. Don't know, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it is a valid concern. I think Xbox need to get a wrangle on some of these big titles that miss Xbox more than games that are going elsewhere. Because if you're putting games elsewhere and you're still not getting the big games that are going to other platforms, then you have more of an issue.
Yeah.
I think it'd be much less of an issue if you're putting some of your games elsewhere and you're also getting the big games that are on another platform, then it wouldn't be so much of a problem. But when you start to get big games consistently miss Xbox, and you're porting your games to other platforms, then it becomes even less of a reason to own the platform in the future. Not necessarily right now, but the next console, you need a reason to buy the next console. And Xbox still need a reason for people to buy that next console. Whether or not they make one is another thing entirely.
They already confirmed they are going to make one.
Yeah.
It's not like they are dropping out for next gen out of the console business. They confirmed that already, and there's no reason to believe right now to do that. But you're absolutely right. Whenever that Xbox will come out, whether it's the rumored 26 release, or is it 27 or 28, and you have not 4, but who knows how many games over there already on PlayStation? Is it really going to... Is Game Pass then enough for people to buy the console? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't know. Dron TJ sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you, brother. And he says, the core games won't go to PlayStation. It will be ABK and Bethesda.
I still think a lot of the core games will remain, but I think some of the core games will go across.
Yeah, I consider Bethesda now core Xbox games. They are out of this phase where they have still obligations and existing contracts with Bethesda and ZeniMax to bring certain games to PlayStation, like they had with Deathloop and Ghostwire. That was during and a little after the acquisition period, but they are out of this now. Bethesda is now an Xbox. I consider that actually to be a core Xbox brand. With ABK, it's funny you mentioned that, Ron TJ, because if you really think about it, what games could they make an exclusive? ABK does not have console games. It's what I've been saying all this time during the acquisition period as well. What do console gamers have as a benefit from the ABK acquisition? Because if you really think about it, Activision only makes Call of Duty. That's all they do. And we all know they have these 10-year contracts. So for the next decade, of course, those games are going to stay multiplat. Then we talk about Blizzard. Blizzard, what do they have? The next Diablo is also like a decade away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they canceled their survival game. So that's not coming. And then there is of course things like WoW and Overwatch, which are still PC, especially WoW is PC only. And then what else do we have? Like King is making mobile games, so there really are no console games from ABK. So yeah, that's other than Call of Duty. And I already know what you guys will put and write here in the chat. Yeah, but what if they reboot this or that? And I still believe that we will get certain reboots. Yeah, maybe they pick up the StarCraft IP again or whatnot. But that's also like if they greenlight a new StarCraft game today, we are not going to see that for at least 6-7 years. So before the next console is going to launch and very well into the next generation, ABK makes only Call of Duty for consoles and nothing else. And that is just the harsh reality. And Surf, I see you in the chat, you're right. Overwatch is a console game. Yeah, that's true. But it is already out and it is already multiplat. And it will be a long time before we see the next Overwatch, because they are not going to do what they did with Overwatch 2. They're not going to release it.
I don't see any ABK games not being multiplat. I see everything ABK does to be multiplat.
Yeah, but again, there are no games other than Call of Duty that you could.
Call of Duty, Diablo.
Again, Diablo.
Overwatch,
the next Diablo 4 will be
Spyro, Tony Hawk's. Like those titles, I can see them just putting them everywhere.
Listen, I know what you mean. But Diablo, if we are talking about the next 5 to 7 years, there are no other console games. That's my entire point. It's just
Call of Duty.
It's just Call of Duty for that. I see Carolina Gamer also. That was he says that it was a 10 years Call of Duty deal, not all ABK games. Yeah, I know, but it really doesn't matter because there are no other games. Diablo 4 is not coming for the next 10 years. It's just not. And so what else do we have? Again, everything that they might greenlight today. If they greenlight Crash Bandicoot today, it's not. We are not going to play that for the next 6-7 years. That's just the reality of it. And so I don't think that ABK is like the discussion point we should have around Xbox going multiplat. If Xbox,
But all I'm saying on the ABK front is that those games anyway, as a company, those games anyway will likely just remain multiplat. I don't see them in the future being exclusive. I don't think anything in their pipeline now. I mean, I could have seen the survival game potentially being exclusive, but now they've canned it. There's no point. And again, from ABK, as you've mentioned, they don't often release other games other than CoD.
Yeah.
Like Crash Bandicoot 4 was how many years ago now? 2 years?
A little longer, I would say. It's a little longer. I would say it's probably, I want to say 4 years.
Yeah.
But
Tony Hawk's remake, that's years ago.
4 or 5 years.
Spyro remake was years ago. Crash Team Racing was years ago.
And they will reboot some of those IPs. I know that. I see that talk also in the chat. They will split off. Not all Activision studios are going to make Call of Duty only. But again, even if you greenlight that today, it's still gonna take many years. And my point really is we don't know what the gaming industry as a whole will
You're
look
right,
like in 6,
yeah.
7, 8 years. Yeah, it might not even be a discussion point, because we will talk about that in a second. It's not just Xbox that is doing this stuff. Yeah, it's Sony has very, very similar plans. Especially when, as long as the acting CEO Hiroshi Totoki is in charge. But let me catch up on the super chats. Stronty Chase sends in a $2 one and says prototype Vigilant V8 True Crime Blur. Yeah, would be cool to get a prototype of that IP. But then again, it would be 6-7 years before you're going to play it. And that's just my point. If Xbox thinks about going multi-platform and putting more games, not all, but more games, it's got to be out of Bethesda and the core studios. And I feel like especially games that are designed as ongoing games, as multiplayer games, Microsoft is going to consider them very heavily, just like Sony. It's not just Xbox again, but like when we talk about a State of Decay 3, comes to mind, obviously, that would make sense. And there are others. Others will follow. And I think it's going to be a mixture of the Xbox core studios and the Bethesda studios. Don't think that they distinguish in between the two. Sea of Thieves is a core Xbox studio. I think where they will be really careful is with their, mascot IPs, obviously Halo and Gears, those kind of games. I think they will be really careful with those, because they know what the outcry would be if you would bring a Halo, and even if it's just a multiplayer, to PlayStation. I can't see them do that. I don't think that's gonna happen, but who's to say that a South of Midnight, these kind of games are not also coming? And again, games that are designed as ongoing games like State of Decay and so on. We shall see, Dutch. We shall see. Since we already touched upon it before we go to Phil Spencer's interview, Sony is really doing a very, very similar thing, right? Just this week, Hiroshi Toki again spoke about that, and he mentioned that they have to think about bringing games, and he specifically said PC and other platforms. So I'm not even sure that, because a lot of the PlayStation fans right now and the PlayStation community is talking about, okay, day one PC releases. I said this last week and I stand by it. I would place a bet that the next Sony first party title, whatever it will be in 25, because this year we won't get any others, but next year, whatever it will be, whether it's the next Naughty Dog game or if it's Wolverine, or we don't know what it's going to be, but I bet that if another year goes by, they will put that game day one in Game Pass. And the Hiroshi Toki is really, really vocal about that right now. He kind of has to. Their shares, their stock dropped a lot lately. Because they don't see the growth. And it's obviously from a business side of view, it makes total sense. They see the success of Helldivers 2 on PC, which is, by the way, a massive gap in between Steam players and actual PlayStation players. So it makes total sense for them. And he specifically said in an interview this week, they have to consider bringing more games to PC and other platforms. So I would be surprised if they are not heavily debating internally right now especially with the talks of the mother company. Why not do something very similar? And they actually have also kind of a benefit that Xbox is trying that out right now, because they can see, okay, how successful is Sea of Thieves on PlayStation? How successful is Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation? And they see, okay, how many potential sales are we missing out if we don't bring certain games to, Xbox? So what are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, I've said it before. I mean, a lot of the Sony diehards don't like to hear it, but ultimately,
Yeah.
the bottom line is these companies are out to make money, and they don't really care too much about what a very small minority of the user base says, because PlayStation as a console and as a user base is predominantly casual.
Yeah.
It's predominantly casual. It is the de facto console that casuals and buyers go to when they pick up a console.
Yeah.
So by sheer percentage, you've got more casuals on PlayStation than you do on Xbox.
Yeah.
The only people that pick up an Xbox is people that have been ingrained into it from the start, or people that are looking into the exact specs of each console and things like that, or maybe it's the very brief word of mouth.
People that are really invested in the gaming community.
Yeah, which is why, and they're completely two different focused consoles. PlayStation has always, from day one, been focused on single-player experiences all the way through. They've had some awesome multiplayer games through the time, but specifically through the PlayStation 2 and 3 and 4 and now 5, they've had continuous aims of getting really great first-party single-player IP out there, whether it be Uncharted, whether it be The Last of Us, whether it be going back and talking about
Days Gone, and so on. Yeah,
even before that, when they first got Final Fantasy on the platform, and things like that. Like, these are driven specifically to that kind of fan base, always have been. Whereas Xbox's entire existence was built upon multiplayer.
Yeah.
The first game that they brought to the console was Halo, and the first thing they talked about was multiplayer.
Yeah.
And then they got Xbox Live running, and Xbox Live was the biggest thing there. And that's what it's been like since day dot. So Xbox has always been focused on these big multiplayer and user-engaged experiences, chatting with your friends and party chats and things like that. Always has been the case. So they've always had this user focus. PlayStation have always been very heavily focused on those single-player narrative experiences. But ultimately, over the test of time, on both platforms, the vast majority of users are casuals.
Yeah.
Because they pick up a FIFA, a Madden, maybe it's a racing game. They'll pick up the Call of Duty or the Fortnite, and that's what the vast majority of players play, or the Robloxes for some kids. That's what they do. So the only way for first party to really expand beyond their limits is to go to other platforms. And Xbox started with PC years ago, and now Xbox goes PC day and date. PlayStation started with PC only last gen, and now they're focusing super heavy on getting games over to PC. PlayStation's only a little bit behind what Xbox's strategy is.
Yeah.
And if people think that PlayStation won't look for avenues to make money by putting certain games over to Xbox or Nintendo Switch, I think they'll be very naive to think otherwise. Because ultimately, these are corporations, and corporations want to make money. And money only comes when you expand the amount of users that can play the game, regardless of whether it's exclusive or not. I have a feeling PlayStation will still have exclusive skins that are only available on this platform, or an exclusive DLC that's only available on this platform, and that's how they'll kind of continue. But ultimately, I see them going down the same strategy. Maybe it's not to the same extent, but they'll definitely do to the same strategy that Xbox does.
Yeah.
And they'll dabble. Okay, what game didn't particularly do well but did score well? Returnal. Returnal didn't particularly do well, but it scored well. Let's put that on the consoles. And we'll look at little games like that where they're hitting maybe a million.
Yeah.
On a user base of 120 million. you think that probably has a bit more legs to it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Returnal already is on PC, but I do get your point, man. I totally do get your point. Let me catch up really quick on a super chat. TJ sends in $5 and says, "Give the ponies Halo, I'll destroy them in SWAT and I'll chainsaw them in Gears of War." Yeah, talking about the core IPs, I think that some of those IPs, like Halo, Gears, these, powerhouse IPs that both sides have, probably will at least stay exclusive to the console. The Xbox obviously brings everything to PC, and I think Sony will too. But as far as it goes, bringing those to other consoles, I don't think that every game will move over, and I don't think Halo and Gears. Can you imagine the outcry, man, in the community if Halo or Gears comes to PlayStation? That would be totally crazy, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Sony is definitely looking at that. Just today, man, they announced VR, PlayStation VR coming to PC, or that they are looking into it. Obviously, VR2 didn't do very well on console. How could it? They didn't really support it. Basically, no games there that would like justify your purchase. It's a great technology, but yeah, they are looking to bring that to PC, and it from a business side, obviously, it makes total sense, man. So yeah, like you said, they will follow Xbox in or similar strategy. We don't know. They have been doing that with a lot of things. Yeah, even if you go back like 20 years when Xbox brought, like you mentioned, online to console, they followed that. They followed with the achievements. They followed with back compat. In a certain way, they also followed with the subscription. PS Plus now, well, they still don't have day and date, but they made a subscription actually available, after that and so on. So they have been following them, not always to the same degree. And that's why I still think the Xbox ecosystem is like the more gamer-friendly ecosystem. Yeah, because you have day and date, you have free cloud save files and cloud support, actually. You have the backwards compatibility program and so on. You still have that. But like you said, that stuff that usually doesn't matter to the more casual audience, or the casual audience just doesn't know that those kind of things exist. But yeah, so we will see you. And that's what I said earlier. If you talk about games that could come out in 6-7 years, we have really no idea what the industry is going to look like. It's going to be a very different industry in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dutch, let us talk about Phil Spencer. He gave an interview with Stephen Totilo, and they mainly discussed three things. They touched upon the job cuts at Microsoft. They talked about Xbox Cloud gaming and the growth over there. And they also talked about, of course, Call of Duty on Game Pass and about physical. Yeah. And let's start with that, because I know that a lot of, especially in the diehard gaming community, a lot of people really like physical for different reasons. Some are collectors, some just prefer to be able to buy games, sell them again, and so on. There are multiple reasons why you could be a fan of physical, which I'm not. I bought my last physical game during the 360 days, and ever since I'm digital only, or actually in both consoles, Xbox and PlayStation. But yeah, it is a valid concern for those that Xbox might leave physical behind. But Phil Spencer reassured they are not getting rid of physical games. That he said that isn't a strategic thing for Xbox. They will follow what customers are doing, and right now, most customers are buying physical, and there are different numbers out there. Like you see a lot the number of around 80% of sales these days are digital. So I was thinking about this, and I don't think that, or the problem around this is, and they also touched upon this in the interview, and Phil elaborated a little bit on that. The problem is that physical is going away everywhere. And if you want to get a disk drive these days, they became more expensive. And that's simply because disk drives are not manufactured in high numbers anymore. So if you want to put a disk, they are more niche. And if you want to put a disk drive in a console in the year 26, 27, 28, it's actually way more expensive than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, because, no other medium is using them anymore. Disk drives are not manufactured for PCs anymore. At least you can still buy these attachable USB drives, but, it's like super low numbers. We don't have DVD players anymore, or Blu-ray players anymore. We don't have that stuff. We don't have CDs anymore, and so on. So disk drives simply are not manufactured at a high number, and the few disks or disk drives that you would sell through consoles is really not that much. So when he talked about that, it made me really think. I could see that the next Xbox, and I'm not talking about this leaked Xbox Slim that we got in October last year, or the info last year about the Xbox Series X Slim, the one that looks like an Alexa, that is rumored to be digital only. I'm talking about the next gen console, the one that will launch in 26, 27, 28, whenever. I don't think that this will have a disk drive, but they will still have a disk drive as an, optional external attachment thing, and a USB drive, something like that, to be able to support physical games. But I don't think that they will have it built in every console, simply for price reasons. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I also agree. I think it won't be built in for. I think for price reasons, I think you're right. Yeah, it'll be a case of potentially having an add-on instead. I don't think it'll be built in. I think it'll be separate in the future, and more just an ad hoc, only order the amount that we need kind of situation.
Yeah.
What about you?
Sorry, I was a little distracted right there because
it's all right.
My gameplay ran out, and I had to change that.
It's all, my stream went completely kaput. It's all right. Like I've had to fiddle around with the bit rate and everything, because the sound, the audio quality was absolutely fine, but the rest of it just died a death. Yeah. So,
so sorry, I was a little distracted right there. What were you saying, man? Sorry.
We're talking about the disc drive. And being potentially a separate add-on as opposed to built into the console. A bit like PlayStation are doing with theirs.
Yeah.
If you've noticed, with the new revised version, they've got the PlayStation 5 disc. You can buy the disc version, but you can also buy the disc as an add-on. I think in the future, they'll just release it as a digital and have the disc as an add-on.
Yeah, I agree. It's exactly what I was thinking. It kind of makes sense. If a disc drive costs you X amount to build in, you'd either take that as a profit margin or put better specs in somewhere else and use the money for that. It doesn't make sense. especially not with all those with the physical numbers dropping like crazy, and it will be even. Of course, they will go even more down in the next couple of years. So I mean, he basically confirmed they are not planning to get rid of physical completely, but yeah, a lot of stores, by the way, in Germany have completely removed Xbox physical games. It's like you can't get them anymore in most stores actually, which is kind of crazy to see. So yeah, it really tells you where they are going with this, and they will probably have a USB disk drive for the console. But yeah, TJ sends in a $20 super chat and says, "I gotta ask you guys now that they have a huge library." Pardon me, it's there. So I gotta ask you guys now that they have a huge library of games dormant. Do you think they should hire people to make a studio just for rebooting old franchise? Do you think they need more support studios to cut dev time? Now, this is a two-parted question. The first is about rebooting old franchises. Basically, Sony has that, right? And I really like that idea because Xbox already had a lot of unused IPs of the old days. Yeah. Crimson Skies comes to mind, man. I would love to see a reboot or remake, a proper remake of that game. But they already have like a ton of older IP that they have not been using. They are rebooting basically 2 IPs now with Perfect Dark and Fable. But they could either really properly remake, give them the full proper remake treatment, you know, and have like a dedicated studio for that. It's the first part of the question. What do you think about that, man?
Sorry, what was the question?
Do you think they should hire people to make a studio just for rebooting and remaking old franchises?
That's a difficult one because I would possibly see maybe create a studio if you see that studio as being maybe a stepping stone for developers that want to grind their get their first taste of developing games as creating remakes, or big games as creating remakes. But I wouldn't want to see seasoned developers be stuck in limbo just creating remakes of games forever instead of doing something new. But definitely getting new developers cutting their teeth creating remakes. Maybe have a studio where you're constantly cycling out talent, and you've got like basically an influx of, okay, you're coming to work for Xbox for the first time. Like we'll put you onto this studio first. These guys make these remakes or reboots. We'll see how your talent goes there, and then after that, then we can discuss kind of what studios are available for you to kind of move on to. I think that would potentially be a good one, especially for people that are new to the industry. It would be cutting their teeth on developing games and how to make games kind of perform better than they did previously, and a lot of the basic stuff, a lot of the learning curves, and then go on to making new and fresh IPs. And
you have a lot of studios to choose. Yeah, it makes sense. And also, I think like Xbox should, because sometimes I read things like, well, the advantage of PlayStation is that they have nostalgia.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, PlayStation isn't that much older. It's not like Nintendo's or so, where you could say, okay, they have like 2 decades more of IPs and we all grew up with that. It's like Xbox is only 5 years younger than PlayStation. It's not like there's this huge gap, and they have that IP. They're just not using it. So I would love that, man. I would love a dedicated studio for older IPs and franchises. And now, especially if you add in Bethesda and ABK, there's so much you could do with those IPs as well. So it totally makes a lot of sense. And his second question was, do you think they need more support studios to cut dev time? I mean,
I think they've got enough studios now as it is. To be
especially
honest.
with ABK, they already, I mean, Activision basically is support studios. They have only a handful like main studios, and then they have like
And then
30,
they've got
40.
the technology. They've got the technology group as well, which is a game support studio.
Yeah, that is
And that
true.
has at least 100 and odd developers in there that support multiple games and multiple channels.
But they are very specifically for technical problems only. And a lot of the, if you think about the work that a lot of the support studios do, it's either about, you know, creating the tons of assets that you have to do to get, like, if you look at, I don't know, any game, yeah, someone has to make all those different trees. And I know there are tools out there for procedural generation and so on, which definitely helps in that. But someone has to make the assets, you know what I mean? The textures, the modeling of characters and so on, and all that things. That's a lot of the things that are usually done there. And then there are other things like playtesting, that help. Bug fixing, playtesting. That's the work of support studios.
They outsource a lot of that stuff. They outsource it a lot.
They outsource it a lot because it is, and the thing is, I've seen this in a couple of discussions. Microsoft, as not Xbox, but Microsoft as the whole company is very well known for outsourcing a lot of stuff to some third-party supplier, and Xbox does that as well. Remember all the discussions we had about Halo Infinite and that troubled development, which was also a lot of those things were related to like outsourcing. And maybe you shouldn't outsource everything, but just have that support studios in there. I don't know if support, growing the amount of support studios is actually the thing to cut dev time. But you definitely should look into how can you cut dev time, because if they
I think the major issue we've got here is a large section of the hardcore community now are not overly pleased when something isn't AAA. They expect every game to be AAA.
Yeah.
What? Like, I still don't get it. The amount of, like, you're playing Banishers at the moment, that is a AA game.
Yeah.
Helldivers is not AAA. Helldivers is a AA game. There is a countless amount of unbelievably great games that people miss out on because it isn't a AAA game.
Yeah.
I think if the focus shifted from creating these just hundreds of these massive AAA IP that cost hundreds of millions and just said, right, okay, we're going to create you're going to get maybe 1 or 2 big AAA games a year at most, and the rest are going to be AA or indie titles, smaller, then I think you'll see a shift to smaller dev times. You'll still get these big IPs throughout the year, but you'll get some smaller dev times, but you'll also get really fantastic experiences that are very well polished because they've had the time, they've had the support, they've had more than enough money to create a great AA game.
Look at Banishers right now. You just have to look at it on screen. It looks fantastic. It plays fantastic. It has an incredible story. The writing is amazing. Not everything has to be blockbuster AAA titles, but I do get of course why people lean towards it. Yeah, if you spend 70 or now 80 euros on a game, you kind of want it to shine and want it to be super polished and have that bang for your buck. You know what I mean? But it ultimately comes down to this discussion we've had many times with whether people should look more into indie games or not.
100%.
Absolutely. Some of the best gaming experiences out there are not AAA games. And but yeah, cutting dev time definitely is something. TJ follows up with a $2 super chat on that particular topic and says they need to cut the dev time down to 4 years. And I do agree there that if they especially over the last week, they talked a lot about how can we grow our business, how can we make it more profitable, and so on. And I think those super long dev times are definitely one factor if you would be able to reduce that. And I think they are actively looking at that. I mean, we know AI is playing a big role.
Yeah, they just need to learn to balance the amount of AAA versus AA versus indie titles that they've got in production. Ultimately, I think both Sony and Microsoft are both at fault for this, but they're focusing too heavily on making huge AAA IP, far too much.
Yeah.
And all of these titles, if you have a look at Bethesda, for instance, pretty much every one of Bethesda's titles is AAA. Yep. Then you have a look at Microsoft, like the vast majority of their big IPs that are coming out this generation, AAA, the vast majority. If you have a look at Fable, if you have a look at Forza Motorsport, if you have a look at Gears, if you have a look at Halo,
if you look,
what you know what I mean, though, and all of these games take 5, 6, 7, 8 years at least.
That is true, but it's not the. I don't think it's fair to say that that's the majority, because right now, if you look at what they have released this gen, you look at games like Hi-Fi Rush and Grounded and Pentiment, and this.
Oh yeah, but Microsoft also know where to diversify and create smaller titles. But in terms of the amount of AAA IP they've got in the works, as much as we
never had as many
like them when they come out.
Yeah, but
the point ultimately is there's just so many of them, and like you've said, in terms of timescale and how much money that costs for all of these big IPs to be created, because it's when people talk about how much millions it costs, the vast majority of that millions that it costs is because it takes so long and you've got that many wages to pay.
Exactly.
That's why it's so expensive.
Not
because the game is significantly bigger than another game, because we've seen AA titles that are bigger than AAA titles. It's simply because of the amount of heads that they have to pay and how long it takes to create the game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
So
that is true.
It's a balancing act. It's a balancing act. Maybe keep some of these smaller studios smaller and just keep them focused on AA. Don't make them transition to AAA. And then the ones that do make these AAA, give them this time. Give people the heads up. Listen, you're not going to get a new Forza Horizon every year. You're not going to get a new Gears every year. You're not going to get a new this every year. Like, you might get one once every 4 years from these studios, or every 5 years from these studios. But ultimately, like, you shouldn't expect to get these big AAA games all the time. And these aren't the big money makers. Like, the big money makers are actually what AA or what games as a service games. They're the ones that
they are the ones. Makes total sense. Yeah, you don't pay as much for the development, but so your return of investment is significantly bigger. Absolutely. TJ sends in another $5 super chat and says, I would love to see Midtown Madness, Mech Assault, Brute Force, Blood and Awake conquer. And Conquer should definitely come back, and Mech Assault, I do agree here. And he also follows up and says, with another super chat, big franchise AAA games should have a support studio behind them. And I think almost all of them do. Most of them are outsourced. And that's, I don't know if that, I mean, we really don't know if that's a healthy business. But Activision has almost all their support studios internally. They consist of 30 plus support studios, and only have a handful of main studios. And of course, that helps you with reoccurring IPs, especially, but also if you have certain know-how and you can, help out this year with that game and the next year with the other game. So support studios definitely make sense to probably shorten the lifetime, the development time. But I think also a lot of other things come into place, like you said, shift away the focus. And Xbox kind of does that. Yes, they have the big major AAA blockbusters in the works, yeah, like Fable, yeah, and Perfect Dark, and so on. They have those coming, but they also have these a lot of those AA games. Yeah, you look at South of Midnight, you look at Clockwork, you look at even State of Decay, things like State of Decay or whatever the next Double Fine game will be, and so on. They have those titles as well in the making, with the hope, of course, that they don't take that long. So
I'm not sure State of Decay would be AA, and I also don't think Clockwork would be.
Well, with Clockwork, they said that's the first in Exile game that's gonna be like their AAA experience. Yeah. So yeah,
but South of Midnight, yeah, absolutely.
South of Midnight, and I listen. As much as I love State of Decay, and especially State of Decay 2, I love that game. I'm not sure if that's gonna be like a AAA. It will be like this. Wow. It will be like Sea of Thieves, you know. In that regard, which is still not considered probably a major AAA title, but will be massive in scope and probably success. But and it will be improved a lot. But yeah, State of Decay, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I think the dev cycle alone would indicate otherwise.
Oh, that's so true. But that goes for like everything.
That and Gears, obviously, Coalition have helped them with that game as well. So they've had
Coalition helps everyone, support. Man. I want them to focus on Gears, bro, but they are left and right and helping out on everything.
I know where it is. I've been debating on jumping on Gears again recently.
Me too, man. Gears 5. I was thinking about doing just another playthrough.
Yeah.
Maybe we should co-op that campaign, bro.
Yeah, I don't know why it got me thinking about it, but the other day I was like, you know what it is? I quite fancy jumping on Gears again.
Yeah. Because it's awesome, man. Gears is just awesome. Yeah. I love it. Let's co-op that. Do another playthrough. Yes. And co-op.
Playthrough, followed by Hivebusters.
Yes, man. I have only played once the Hivebusters DLC.
Same.
I could.
I can't even remember it. I remember lava. That's kind of all I remember really from it.
And at the beginning, you're fighting on the beach, but it is great.
Yep.
It was. I remember it as a fantastic add-on. Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's play some Gears again. Gears is so good. I was also seeing a couple of posts from. It was either Jamie Moran or Nico, can't remember, the other day, who has been playing Gears 3 with HDR boost and FPS boost and everything, and I was like,
that'll be Jamie Moran then.
Yeah, I could go for that. I feel the Gears itch. Paul AFC is sending in a super member chat. Awesome to see you, by the way, brother. And he says, "Evening, lads. It's a AAA snobbery." Yeah.
AAA snobbery?
Yeah. AAA snobbery. Yeah, I cannot really add anything to that. It kind of is. So yeah. Where were we? While I search for the topic where we were, I was. I need to thank all the people that are already here. We have some cool discussions in the chat. And if you do enjoy the show, don't forget to hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you're new. We have this podcast every Thursday, so we would appreciate that, guys. But Dutch, we were actually at the Phil Spencer interview. I don't know. I no idea how we got to this point, but who cares? So we covered physical. What else did he talk about? He talked also a lot about Call of Duty and Game Pass. And he once again reconfirmed that they have the intention to bring all ABK games day one to Game Pass. So that naturally would include Call of Duty. He didn't talk about this year's Call of Duty though. So we really don't know. What do you think, man? Is this year's Call of Duty already coming day one to Game Pass?
It sounds like it.
It kind of sound.
It did say all ABK games are going to Game Pass day one. That is our intention.
Yeah.
And we have to say this. There's always a reason he uses certain words. His intention is to bring all games to Game Pass day one.
Yeah.
Whether or not that intention is fulfilled is another matter. But the intention is to bring all games to Game Pass day one. They've obviously eventually brought Diablo over to Game Pass starting March.
Yeah.
So good for those who haven't played it. I've already played it. I've already owned it. So it makes no difference.
I own it twice, bro.
Yeah.
I double dipped on PC and console.
Yeah. But the next big thing from ABK is Call of Duty. And with regards I think what people really want to know at the moment, aside from Call of Duty going into Game Pass, is just when we're going to see more of the back catalogue of ABK hit Game Pass. Because a lot of people want to play some of these older Call of Duty games, or ones that they might have missed out on because they didn't want to buy them. Things like the previous, like Vanguard and things like that. Like I'd play Vanguard if it was in Game Pass, but there's no chance that I'm buying that game.
Yeah, same here. I've with Call of Duty, I'm not a multiplayer guy when it comes to Call of Duty, but I do enjoy usually the campaigns. They are like this Michael Bay movie, popcorn over the top action movie. That's basically what a Call of Duty campaign is. And so I usually buy the Call of Duties when they are on a deep sale for $20-25. Just to play the campaign. And Vanguard is one I haven't played yet. So yeah, but I wouldn't buy that game at full price or close to full price. So yeah, but Matt Booty was in the Xbox podcast was like, yeah, we will bring every of our games, and that obviously includes Call of Duty, to Game Pass day one. And so the rumors about this year's, they are out there, man.
Yep. And you know what it is? You can interpret that either way. Fingers crossed it comes out day one. It would save me 70 quid. I begrudge. It's gotten to a point now where I begrudge picking up Call of Duty every year. I begrudge paying $70 for pretty much the same game with a couple of older maps that have been remastered and a few tweaks here and there.
Yeah.
I kind of begrudge it now. The campaigns are short-lived, and it doesn't.
5 hours really typically, around 5 hours.
It's not worth
full
it.
price.
70 quid.
Yeah.
So I begrudge getting them. So for all those that want to pick it up, fantastic for you. But for me, ultimately, I'd happily, as soon as it's into Game Pass day one, and that saves me ever picking up Call of Duty or buying it ever again.
Yeah.
Simple. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
If the rumors are true, this year's Call of Duty campaign is apparently very different from the previous ones. It's apparently true open world, like Far Cry.
Ghost Recon.
No, what the rumors say, it's more like Far Cry in its campaign. And I would
Ghost Recon.
I've never played Ghost Recon, so I don't know.
Ghost Recon Wildlands and Ghost Recon Breakpoint are huge open world military shooters. They're actually, you would enjoy it because they've both got stories. They're just very tactical in the way that you take on your missions. That's what they attempted to do with the previous Call of Duty that's just come out in the campaign. Is they said, okay, you got choices. You can go in stealthy, or you can be like all guns blazing. You can kind of debate on how you take on each mission, which is something that they hadn't done before. And obviously, that ultimately is what Ghost Recon is. It's just you choose how you want to approach this. It's a big open world playground with a story.
Yeah.
It does have stories in it. But if that's the route that they're going down, then we'll see how it turns out.
That would actually make me interested in the Call of Duty campaign definitely more. John TJ sends in another $5 super chat. Thank you, man. And he says they said they will bring the new Call of Duty this year. The only thing that would stop them is back-end coding it into Game Pass. Check their Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah. I have to actually check the Twitter again, because the way I remember it, how they phrased it, is that they are looking into bringing Call of Duty this year to Game Pass, but it wasn't this year's Call of Duty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously the back-end coding is what stops a lot of ABK games right now to come to Game Pass, because they are all in BattleNet, right? They will have to obviously bring them into the Xbox fold to be able to have cross play, cross save, and so on via Xbox's backend. That's definitely a thing. But yeah, I bet we will find out during the June showcase. If Call of Duty comes to Game Pass day one this year, you know that this is going to be one of the big announcements during this year's June showcase. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, TJ, I have to check their Twitter again. But yeah, other than that, Phil talked about the gaming job cuts that they had earlier this year, and he also talked about xCloud and growth of cloud gaming. Some interesting stuff there. As for the job cuts, he talked about them. Well, basically what we also said during the podcast, a lot of the layoffs had to do not just with growing profits. Well, that's obviously always the reason, but also with them having a lot of redundancies now after the ABK acquisition. Still not justifying it, just saying what it is, and it still sucks for those developers and people working there that are affected. So, but yeah, Dutch. Let us move on for now from Xbox and go over to real quick again to Sony, because for a while now the rumors are out there that they will bring out a PS5 Pro this year. And this week we not only had a couple of analysts out there predicting that, we don't give two shits about the predictions of the analysts, because they usually state the obvious, and I think a lot of our community here would do a better job in being an analyst than some of those clowns out there, because with basic understanding of the gaming industry and the gaming community, you can predict a lot of things. But yeah, a couple of analysts came out. They said they will have that hardware ready this year, especially since GTA 6 hits, because that will be a system seller, and it will be actually a system seller for both. It will be for Xbox and PlayStation. I don't think that this is a justified logical chain, you know what I mean, for them to release a new console. But then someone else came out. Moore's Law is that they run a YouTube channel, and they have been correct multiple times with their leaks when it comes especially to Sony stuff. And they came out this week and said, well, the PlayStation 5 Pro not only will come out this year, but will be marketed as a 120 frames console at 4K. Yeah, marketed as 120 frames at 4K machine, and that all the games will need to require a little work to actually get the performance improvements. So it's not that the console will automatically run all the PS5 games in a better way. If developers want to make use of the console's improved hardware, they will have to put in the work to do so.
We're going to get a bunch more remasters and definitive editions.
That's exactly my thought. It was exactly my thought. Two things about Sony and their marketing. They put the 8K on the PS5 box, right?
Yeah.
So if it's only marketing 120 frames at 4K, listen, 120 frames at 4K is barely achieved with a 4090. So
yeah. I still don't know why they want to shout about 4K all the time. Like, it's such a waste of resources. We've been saying this for so long. Native 4K is a waste of resources.
True that.
It's just a waste.
True that.
The vast majority of PC gamers are playing the game. The vast majority are playing the games at 1440p or upscaled 1080p to 1440 or upscaled 1440 to 4K if they do 4K.
Yeah.
None of them play native because it is a waste. It's a waste of overhead.
Especially with the upscalers that we have right now out there, obviously DLSS and Intel's XeSS and then Fidelity FX Super Resolution. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. You're absolutely right. But I've seen a lot of people jump on that. Yeah, we get that 120 frames at 4K with the PS5 Pro. And if you really fall for that kind of marketing buzz, be prepared to get disappointed. Yeah.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. And as for the console being built and not to take like advantage automatically of the increased performance, but for developers to actually have to code for it, I mean, that was expected, right? If you think that it's all magic and that's just not how software works and not how games work, and of course you have to extra code for that, which probably of course most developers will do. But yeah, so we shall see. I think we will see the reveal of that PS5 Pro more towards the summer of this year, and then they release it for holiday season, just like Xbox with the Series X Slim or whatever they will call it. Yeah, it's hardware year, man. It's a hardware year. Definitely.
I won't be picking up any of them this year. The only one I would have been interested that came out this year was the Switch 2, but that's next year.
That's next year, actually. Let us talk about that real quick, since you bring it up. The rumors, and I think at this point it's a little more than just a rumor. It has been confirmed by many, many different sources that the planned Switch 2 for this year got delayed to 2025. Internally delayed. Well, you can't really delay something that hasn't been announced, but you know what we mean. Like you said, we have the PS5 Pro at the end of this year and the Series X. You're not interested in those two. For me, the Series X Slim, I don't know. Let's see what it really is, but I'm interested in the controller, but I don't need a smaller form factor. I don't need a bigger SSD, and even if I did, I could buy for $100 an expansion card just to get the better Wi-Fi. I don't even use Wi-Fi. I have my console hardwired, so it's the Slims are. are cool, and for those who are new into this gen. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense, at least from the leaks we have seen. Yeah, if that's true, what we all assume right now that the leaks are correct, then it still packs the same performance. So I wouldn't be really interested in getting one, because I don't feel like $500 or $600 or whatever it will be will justify the smaller form factor.
I'll pick up the new controller separately, but I'm not going to be buying a
Absolutely. If that new controller comes out, that's a day one buy for me. Absolutely, but not the slim. As for the PS5 Pro, it's no secret I'm a fan of mid-gen upgrades. I love the ideas, but with PlayStation, for me, it's right now, why should I get it? I play my multiplats usually on Xbox and sometimes on PC, but the PlayStation for me is an exclusive machine. So I play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth now. I'm gonna play that, and last year I played obviously games like Spider-Man and the Horizon Forbidden West add-on and so on. But since the roadmap is so super dry, I don't see a reason to get a PS5 Pro. Because I'm just not gonna use it, So that's simply the fact for it. But now the Switch 2, that was the one I was looking forward to, because
I need a new Switch.
Yeah, I think we all do. All do. So the rumors suggest that they have internally delayed the Switch 2 to 2025 for software reasons. They want to have obviously a launch lineup ready. It is heavily.
So a company knows that they need to launch with games. Well, that's nice, isn't it, Microsoft?
They can learn. They can learn.
Definitely.
Definitely. So rumors say, of course, the next 3D Mario is going to be a launch title. I could also see Metroid 4 being a launch title.
Maybe it's a new Pokemon.
Maybe. Because
that ultimately would have been a this year release. Now, there is a Pokemon stream this week.
So do you think then that the next Pokemon is that far away? That would be at least a year?
It depends. Because they might just announce another expansion for Scarlet and Violet for the time being. They might announce things like the emulated versions of the original games. It depends, because Nintendo are hit or miss. They go all in with like brand new reveals, or they just show you a bunch of old titles that are coming back out again.
Yeah,
that you've already got, or expansions.
All right.
There's no in between. Just hit or miss.
That is true. See, my point with this Switch delay is we already know that the next Switch is also not going to be like a super powerhouse console like a PlayStation or an Xbox. That's not what it's going to be. Nintendo has two things that they always do. They make profit off of their consoles, so they are not subsidizing it. And since it's also going to be a hybrid console with the handheld, they will not be able to keep up with the performance race. You know what I mean? It's just not gonna happen. So we know that whatever the specs are when they come this year, it's probably not even going to be on the same level like a Rock Ally or something like that. I think
it's going to be Xbox slightly more powerful than an Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that's exactly what the rumors I also have been saying. And them delaying it to next year doesn't help them in the performance thing, because it's not like, okay, let's delay a console for a year and then put in some better specs because of that. That's just not how it's working, because The specs have been fixed for years. Yeah, Xbox is probably right now fixing the SoC of the next Xbox hardware, and then 3-4 years later you will get the actual chip. Yeah, so it's not like, okay, let a couple of months before launch, just delay the console and then get better specs in the console. That's just not how it works. So that means that they will going to launch a new console in 2025 that has the specs of, like you said, a PS4, Xbox One, maybe slightly better. That is how old now? 11, 12 years by then. So yeah, that's my thing with this delay. As for now, I have a good handheld with the ROG Ally. I can take my Game Pass games with me. I can take my Steam games with me. It's all good. But yeah, Nintendo, that the Switch 2 is so required. And also, when you look at their lineup this year, and we will talk about the Nintendo Direct in a bit, there's really nothing super exciting coming. At least not from me. I know that the Nintendo fans out there, they like those quirky Nintendo games. What I do like is the Zeldas, is the Marios, is the Metroids. It's like the classic Nintendo IPs. And yeah, I would have loved to get a new proper 3D Mario this year on a brand new Switch that is at least running the games in a way that you think you are in the year 2024. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is what it is. They delayed it internally, and so we shouldn't expect the Switch 2 this year. Let me catch up on the super chats. TJ sends in $5 and says the Call of Duty thing was in the Phil Spencer interview. He thinks. Very good. I will definitely look it up, man. And have a closer look to the phrasing. And he follows up with a $10 super chat and says, if you want to get rid of the console wars, buy Valve Steam. Valve is Steam. They are private. They are a private company, 4 billion. Also, do a partnership and put a Steam app launcher on Xbox. We already can use keyboard and mouse on Xbox. I mean, the Xbox should buy Steam thing is something that is out there for a long time now. I don't think that it would be actually even possible to put a Steam launcher on Xbox because the games are not coded for that. Xbox runs the Xbox OS, and it's not a Windows-based device per se. So I don't think that the games would even run there. Yeah. But yeah, we've been saying this, that if Microsoft would be serious to get a proper foothold into PC gaming, that would be the way to go. Because let's be real here, PC is owned by Steam. PC gaming is owned by Steam.
Yeah,
that's just what it is. Yes, there's Epic and so on. There are other launchers out there, but yeah, the market share is absolutely with Steam. And Microsoft really hasn't been trying to attack them. They have their own store. If they would be serious to get a proper foothold on PC, they would either make that PC store good or try to get the holds of Steam. But I don't think that Valve is looking for a sale. What do you think, man? Xbox Steam combination?
I can understand where they're coming from, but again, it's so many different things that you couldn't bring over to Xbox with it. Yes, they have mouse and keyboard support, but there's far more to it than that. Of course, as we mentioned, the back end wouldn't allow it because they're not the same system. They don't operate the same. Also, the marketplace is highly unregulated on highly unregulated on Steam. And literally anything goes. Like some of the games that you find on Steam are just weird, like weird adult games. Like very highly sexualized adult games that they really wouldn't get away with putting on console.
That's true. Yeah. But see, I've always wondered why Xbox never really tried to unify console and Windows, since they own both, that they have at least the same launcher and have basically the PC versions running on a console. I know they talked about this, that it is super difficult and challenging and so on, and I still wonder why. After all those years, them having a console, it still baffles me that they have not unified that and let Windows Lite or Windows Core version running on the console.
Or even vice versa, have an Xbox OS like version for the PC.
Yeah.
A bit like Steam has Steam Big Picture. That's more of a console-esque setup on Steam.
Yeah.
Compared to the actual regular Steam, just looks like a general marketplace, whereas Big Picture is more like what you would have as an OS for your startup on a console. And that's ultimately what they kind of need for, I think, the Windows games on PC is essentially like Xbox OS when you launch that up, and then you can install your PC games like you would on a console, but ultimately it's still PC. It just has the Xbox OS.
Yeah, true. And it would finally solve the third-party problem for, or what I like to call the third-party problem, with the rise of all those PC handhelds. Yeah, you have the Steam Deck out there, you have the Ally, you have the Lenovo, and so on. Out there, those are very popular, and it brings you in this predicament where to buy the third-party games. You know, I love to play my third parties on my Xbox console, but if I buy a third-party game on the console, I can't play it on the Ally. So, yeah. Interesting thought, though. Yeah, that is definitely the case. So we were talking about the Switch 2. Oh, hang on. Before I miss it, and we go back to the Switch 2. He said we have another sub chat coming in from TJ and follows up and says, if the Windows team is making the next Xbox, make it Windows friendly, then it could, and we could just upgrade it.
See, this is something that I've heard, the rumor of the Surface team making the next Xbox, and that's not particularly true. The actual semi-truth to it is that the Surface team are indeed working on a project for Xbox, but
they
the original
always have,
team with Jason Ronald,
by the way.
Yeah.
Jess Gordon put up an interesting article on that particular rumor. The Surface team always has supported the hardware team of Xbox.
Difference is this time round, because they obviously, like you say, they always have, is they're more involved in the fabled / rumored / not so undercover handheld, whereas Jason Ronald's team are more focused on the actual main device, so the actual console unit. So that's Jason Ronald's team. They haven't been disbanded. He's still there. He's still going. Whereas the Surface team are more, although they're working on both, they're more focused on, because they've got great experience in making really great Surface products with quite high-end capabilities. They're more focused on taking their knowledge into, okay, so what can we do with a handheld, a portable device?
Yeah.
So that's really where the Surface team come into play there.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, they've always been working with them, but that because of their work on Surface tablets, Surface Surface Pro laptops, etc., they know how to make, should we say, diluted version of the big guys, diluted versions of the motherboards and the APUs instead of GPUs. So they know how to do that stuff, which is why they're always working hand in hand with Xbox for that. But for the projects, the next projects, the handhelds, the Surface team is most definitely more involved because they're more focused on that handheld.
Yeah.
Jason Ronald's team's more focused on the actual main unit.
I do agree, and I also think that how do I put that? I think with the next Xbox, we will see a shift in the architecture even closer to PC, so that they kind of try to bring the architectures of PC and console even closer together to make porting games over to console even easier. That's definitely one thing, and I think that will play and that the Surface team will play a big role in that. Also, totally off the topic now, but just today, Microsoft announced a big partnership with Intel. And their collaborative work on a new generation of a chipset, and that is something I have been thinking about a lot lately. I'm not sure, honestly, if Microsoft will stick with AMD next time. We have also heard from a couple of insiders that, yes, Sony already has ordered a new chip for the next generation from AMD. Well, take it all with a grain of salt, of course. It's just leaks and rumors and stuff but actually from some actually really reputable insiders. So, and Microsoft has not ordered that. And so that really brings up the question, is Microsoft going to move away for the next Xbox from a super close partnership with AMD? They just announced this collaboration today with Intel on a new chipset. It is not particularly Xbox related. It's more a Microsoft collaboration. But of course,
I'd love to see them go NVIDIA.
Exactly. Also Nvidia would be a proper candidate. Then there's this rumor out there that they might look into ARM. Into an ARM architecture. There are other possibilities out there. And especially since I feel like Xbox is probably not where they are in terms of hardware performance this gen, especially in the let's say first 2 years or so. We discussed this hundreds times. The tools. A lot of those tools were actually drivers and tools from and for NVIDIA AMD hardware. And so I'm not sure if Microsoft maybe feels a little let down by that. And when Sarah Bond talks about that the next generation is going to be the biggest leap in performance ever. Yes, definitely that's a marketing phrase, but also if you just stick with the similar architecture like an RDNA 5 by then or so, I'm not sure if you're gonna get that. But if you would move over, like you said, to NVIDIA and actually have DLSS in there, which undoubtedly is still the best version of upscaling technologies out there, or even Intel's support for XeSS, which is also similar to FSR, hardware agnostic, but still they have also AI cores, tensor core. They don't call it tensor cores, but it's the same neural network approach that they are using, like NVIDIA. And AMD doesn't have that. So I could see that happening. The problem with NVIDIA always is, or was so far, of course, that they don't have a CPU. Yeah. And that makes it a lot more challenging to put an APU into a console. Nintendo has done it, yes. But you see the result in terms of performance, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So Intel would definitely make sense there. They have APUs out there, very capable APUs out there, and
Or they could just shake it all up and just do, instead of doing an APU, go down the CPU, GPU route.
exactly. And that would actually definitely be one thing where we say, okay, if you have like a true big or the biggest generational leap you've ever had, then you would need to go into something daring like that and move away from the APU design.
And like you say, like if you've got to think about it as well. A lot of the most like high performance laptops now, and this is where they go down to it, but these are small form factors, but they've all got RTX in them now, all the laptops. They've all got Intel CPUs or Zen CPUs. They're not APU based. They are just small form factor laptop version of the standard cards.
True.
So it is a possibility that they go down the route of getting a CPU with Intel. A specific one that's been crafted for it, a CPU with Intel, and use NVIDIA as a GPU, and work hand in hand with them. I'd like to see them shake it up and do something different for a change, and say, okay, how do we actually perform instead of being wrangled by an APU that has cost negatives to each side. You say, okay, we're restricted by either the limited CPU, which is always a bottleneck on consoles, and as opposed to the GPU, which is always pretty decent, to having a case of, okay, we're going to have a decent CPU and a separate GPU and treat it a little bit more like a PC, but with the Xbox OS.
Yeah. And it also would kind of resolve the one thing that is always limiting consoles, and that is, you talked about this every time we talk about hardware, is the RAM. And if you take away the APU approach, you're not limited by this shared memory pool, since a dedicated GPU on PC usually has their own video memory pool, which obviously then frees up your RAM as it is. So they, outside of the cost thing, obviously, that's why you would never build a beefy PC with an APU. You would just wouldn't do that. Yeah. But consoles have been doing that for decades now, and to move if you really want to make a powerful console, it would definitely be one thing to consider. But then, of course, the cost factor comes in. Yeah, that's always the thing.
The cost factor does come in, but then you've got, okay, it would be a custom chipset, it would be a custom GPU. It would be the RAM would be designed specifically for everything would be designed specifically for it, but you're bulk ordering. You're not just going, okay, we're just going to get one. So then it comes down to a different factor. And of course, when you bulk ordering, especially when you're going as Xbox, right? Okay, we're going to be making fucking X amount of millions of consoles.
Yeah,
like that kind of thing significantly brings the cost down anyway.
Yeah.
In comparison to NVIDIA, who, believe it or not, posted their stuff this week. Their profit margin, and Jesus wept, they rocketed.
Oh, yeah.
100 million RTX users. 100 million RTX users. That means everybody's got crazy. At least a 30 series and above. 100 million people have got a 30 series or above.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. So, honestly, like, if I could place a wish, they are going for the 2 SKUs, at least we think that, again, but not in the same way like they did it this gen with the Series S and X, but the 2 SKUs being the handheld or the handheld/hybrid console and a regular one. That's what we all assume right now. So if I could place a wish, let's make the handheld, somewhere at the $500 mark. As the base console, you have that hybrid. You can plug it into your TV and you can play on the go, and that's around the €500 or dollar price point. And then have a real gap in between the two SKUs. Because I feel like the gap in between the Series S and the Series X, with the €200 different at launch, where it was $500 and $300, that isn't really big enough. Yeah. I do get the idea of a $300 console. And it totally makes sense if you think about, we want to have a low entry point. Yeah, we do want that. But then the delta in between Series S and X isn't that big. It's mainly resolution based. Yeah. If you have this handheld, let's say at around, just for the sake of argument, at around $500 price point, make the actual console a high-end console for one time. Yeah. Shake things up, like you said. Shake things up. Make it, let's say, €1,000, and with that you can pack in a lot of great specs. Move away from the APU design. Get some real power out of it and make that as really like a true premium device. You know what I mean? That would be awesome, man. That's just like the hardcore gaming fans speaking. I know it's probably never going to happen, because they want to have the console as a product that appeals to the mass market, and I don't think that's what they think. But then on the other hand, people are willing to buy premium products. Yeah, that's why the iPhone sells so good. Yeah, because it is a premium product. You can argue, or the Samsungs. Yeah, man, the Galaxy series, of course. There is a demand, and like you said, Nvidia, it's insane. Yeah, they sell. Yes, you have the cheaper entry points, the 40s, 70s, 60s, and so on, but the 4080s and the 4090s are also selling like hotcakes, because there's a big market for such a premium product, and that would definitely shake things up in the console space. If you have if you want really good performance and graphics in a console, you have to get the Xbox Super Duper XL or whatever, and then I would love that, man. It's but okay. Let me catch up on a super chat. Toronto J sends in another $5. Thank you so much, man. And he says, keep Steam how it is. Just put it on Xbox and PlayStation and it would go through. Yeah, I'm a little late with catching up. We were earlier talking about Xbox and Steam. And in the chat, they had a discussion about when Xbox would buy Steam, it wouldn't go through. I don't know if just putting it on Xbox and PlayStation, I still don't think that this is technically possible to put Steam on consoles as they are. The regulatories would definitely be all over that.
If Xbox they would, because it would have a stranglehold on the PC market, like a complete stranglehold.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, it sounds so cool, if you think about it, and then Steam is somehow included in Game Pass, or Game Pass is then on Steam or whatnot. But at least we have some sort of competition now. It's not all owned by Microsoft, and competition to me is key. And I know that you can see from two sides. There's still no competition in the PC market because PC is owned by Steam. But since Steam is a privately owned company, they don't behave like a they don't act in the interest of shareholders. They
Nope.
haven't for years, and that's why they get away with basically having a monopoly, because that's what basically Steam is. It is the PC monopoly. But since they are privately owned and don't have to report to shareholders, they kind of get away with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, all right, Dutch. We are already well above the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
We said in the beginning we have to take some time for the community questions, because this week we not only have many, but we have some really good ones.
Yes.
So I would like to move over to the community questions now. And the first one comes in from Doom Reaper. And he says, what do you feel is an acceptable time frame for DLC for a game after its launch? And I really like that question, because with the announcement of Elden Ring's DLC, 2 years, it comes out 2 years after the launch of the game. It kind of makes you think. So what is an acceptable time frame for the launch of an add-on or DLC?
It depends on what the game is. If it's a games as a service or multiplayer game, then you need it within the first 3 months, ideally. Because people have played the campaign within the first 3 months, or people are just finishing the campaign, and then they've got another bunch of content to go into.
Yeah.
And you do the kind of revolving cycle. If it's single player, however, and you do DLC, then like a year? I would say a year gives them enough time, because ultimately when they finish wrapping up the main one, they're already working on whatever DLC they're working on for the game anyway. Like Starfield had Shattered Space. They've already been working on Shattered Space for a while. We'll get to see that at some point this year.
Do we?
So I say about a year. But again, some larger titles can get away with putting out DLC for it.
Yeah. I would definitely agree that it depends on the kind of game. And I'm with you, like service games, and multiplayer based games, they need a lot of content right after launch, because that's when people are hyped, people play the game extensively, usually campaigns are finished quickly, the end game content is played, everyone's playing end game content for a certain amount of time, and then and once you're out, it's harder to get back into a game, and that's definitely different with like single player games. But even with single player games, I feel like you shouldn't overdo it with. I feel like an Elden Ring 2 years is definitely too long. It kind of feels like too long. Because if I go back now to Elden Ring, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, I need to get back into not just the controls, which you have to get used to, but you know, especially with a game like that, where you have to, okay, this is the time window for dodging, this is the time window for parrying, and so on, and you kind of forget all that, you know, after all that time. And you brought up Starfield. I'm still hoping for Shattered Space this year, but since they have been so quiet, and it's now, it is almost half a year now since that game came out, and we haven't heard or seen anything about it, and they really have not been super good in supporting the game after launch. Yes, they brought out a couple of patches with bug fixes and so on, but they promised us so much that will actually change certain things like city maps and HDR support properly, and so on. So I feel like they could have done a little bit a better job there and at least bring us some of the really heavily requested features after launch. I'm not sure when we will see shattered space. I'm still hoping for this year, but I feel also like if they would launch the DLC this holiday season, where they have Stalker 2 and Avowed and Indie, and then you launch that in the middle. So I think that a good time window to bring out a DLC is within the next 6 months before after launch, because after that, games tend to get overshadowed by simply the new and shiny stuff. Also, people are out, they forget about the mechanics and how the world works and how this or that mechanic works. And so even with single player games, I'm more in the camp of 6 months feels good. And since we touched on the subject of Bethesda, usually Bethesda, that's what they did with Fallout 4, that's what they did with Skyrim. And so if you look at their main launches, they usually brought out the first DLC around the 6 months mark, which would make what now March for Starfield, and we're definitely not getting Shattered Space in March. I don't think so. Great question, though. The next one is a little bit longer, so please bear with me. It's from Amblix, and he says, "Hey fellas, hope everything has been well for you and your loved ones. Thank you for asking. Yes, it has. Hope all is well with you too, man." He says, "I know mobile gaming isn't your forte, but I'd like to ask about Honkai Star Rail and MiHoYo. Somehow this company has turned a single-player turn-based JRPG into one of the biggest live service games currently supported. It has kept me engaged for months without putting any money into it, and every update has expanded the story and endgame massively with the recent 2.0 update. My question is, why isn't Xbox? What do you think Microsoft said to MiHoYo during Genshin Impact negotiations, whom Microsoft had a first shot at since it had the PC client, that turned them off so much that their game don't even sniff Xbox anymore? Like Phil Spencer said, who is helping? The only thing I can find out about an exclusivity agreement between MiHoYo and Sony is that Sony invested 1 million yuan, which is approximately $140,000 into them in 2022, which seems like a small drop in the industry. So basically the question is, why isn't Microsoft trying to get games like Genshin Impact, undoubtedly one of the biggest games out there, to get that on console?
You're asking the wrong person. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm also not a huge fan of Genshin or Persona or anything like that. So, yeah, I don't know, but Xbox has never been good in Asian territory. They've slightly improved, and they're continuing to slightly improve, but ultimately these Asian companies still don't particularly trust Microsoft or like Microsoft or Xbox for that matter.
Yeah.
So trying to get these large Asian IPs onto Xbox are going to be significant work in negotiations in order to get them over.
Yeah.
It's got not just to do with monetary value either. It's about the way that the company in itself is viewed in Asian territory, and that's a different kind of obstacle to clear.
While I do agree with everything you said about Xbox in the Asian territory, I also feel like the problem with those mobile games, would they really find an audience on console?
Yes.
You think so?
I mean, look at the new Monster Hunter. That's absolutely a mobile game, but that's going on a console.
That is true. That's true. But I don't think
Monster Hunter Rise was absolutely a mobile game, but that's on console. Like, there's so many games that are realistically mobile games, but they've been ported to console.
Yeah, but I think with Monster Hunter, a lot of people don't think of Monster Hunter as a mobile game per se, but rather than the mobile console game going to mobile and not a mobile game coming to console.
MOBA, isn't it? The MOBA games, which is massively online fucking mobile games. And a lot of these MOBAs, to be honest, they have their audience, but I don't think Xbox have got a big enough audience in Asian territory anyway to consider spending enough money to get them over. I understand what that would mean for them in terms of potential outlook, but potential versus how much they potentially have to spend in order to get that onto console in the first place, and then go around then convincing that team to create a port for Xbox. The monetary value versus what you'll get in return on Xbox.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be. I don't.
Yeah.
You've got to think of it from a business standpoint. You understand both avenues. Yes, it would go, oh, look at that. This huge Asian game is now on console. Yeah. Awesome. But on the flip side, from a business perspective, they would absolutely, I don't think they'd make their money back.
Yep.
I just don't, because I don't think enough people would actually pick it up on console. On Xbox for specifically, because it's not a big Asian audience on Xbox.
Yeah. Yeah,
you're talking like
probably a combination of both. You know,
it's maybe like 100,000 or 200,000 people have an Xbox in Asian territory.
Yeah. That's
not big enough.
So true.
And the Western, like, as much as people like to claim Western audiences love Japanese games, they don't. These Japanese games don't do well in the West. They never have, not even on PlayStation. They don't do well.
Yep,
like Final Fantasy does. Like Final Fantasy is one of the biggest Asian Japanese names that everybody's heard of. And Japanese they don't do 30, 40 million copies. They barely scrape 15.
Yep, true. Yeah. So, like I said, it's probably a combination of in between Xbox struggling with the Asian territory. And the fact that mobile games on consoles probably don't do that well. But yeah, let us move on. Forza Urban.
They could on one side, though. They could on one side look at a potential deal to get it into Xbox Game Pass on mobile when they bring out the mobile app.
Yeah. It will be very interesting to see what they do with that, man. Forza Irvin writes in and says, when are you going to play Forza Motorsport and take on the Nordschleife?
That's for you.
That's for me. Because I told him the other day you played it, yeah. So I haven't played Forza actually since launch. I played a little when it came out, but I'm just not a sim racer guy. I know it's a fantastic game.
Boxy. The only reason I've still got it installed is because Asa from Game On Daily does his community nights, and he always plays Forza Motorsport, and he has like 9-10 people racing against each other. It's hilarious. You play like 3-4 races, maybe a little bit more if you've got a bit more time, and then that's it. So once a week, I'll occasionally jump into Asa's stream. We'll race against each other, have a bit of a laugh, and then that's it, done. That's what I like about Forza. Just go on, race against a few people. Sometimes it's clean, sometimes it's dirty as hell, and we're ramming each other off the park. But that's when it's fun. For me, I'm like you, sitting just playing a sim racer by myself. I might play 1-2 races and I'll turn it off. It's not as enjoyable for me as playing against my friends and having a laugh that way.
Yeah. So for me, it's like I said, I'm not that big into sim racers. I played it a little bit, wanted of course to see how it feels to play, how it looks, and so on. But then ever since it's not like Forza Horizon, which pulls you just back in because it's more arcadey. That's my jam. But that's basically it. So next question comes from Sin, aka DSP. Actually sent it in just right before the show via Twitter and a Twitter DM, and he says, "Hello, Boxy. I know I'm late for the community questions, but here goes anyway. With the success of Palworld and Helldivers 2, do you foresee mass co-op gaming to be the next big trend? Hope you cover this question in today's stream." So yeah, we're covering it.
I see it being the next big trend, or does that co-op trend return because Xbox have never lost that trend? Halo was co-op. Gears was co-op. Forza is co-op. Forza Motorsport is co-op. Like a lot of their big titles are co-op.
They are, and Xbox basically always
trend,
has.
I hope so. Industry trend, I hope so, because there's a lot of games where I'd love to play the single player campaign in co-op. There's a lot of games where I think it would work as co-op.
Yeah.
If you have a look at things like the next Dragon Age, that would be awesome if you could co-op with someone on that. It would be awesome if there was the next Witcher was co-op. Obviously, we know they're making a multiplayer game, but if the standard mainline game had the option to have a drop-in, drop-out co-op person beside you, like a lot of these single-player games, I think would benefit from having that ability to play through the campaign with your friend as an additional character. They don't have to be a story-centric one, because the vast majority of co-op characters in a lot of these games are just kind of AI-ish to a point. They're just playing with you, and then the cutscene goes on, and the person who's hosting is the main guy. But I hope co-op is adopted. And by mass co-op, Sin, do you mean, because he's in my chat as well, do you mean by mass co-op, do you mean like large scale co-op games like you see with Helldivers, where there's like 4 or 5 people on trying to do targets and things like that? Or do you mean campaign co-op? Or because there's a lot of different versions of co-op that you could be referring to.
Yeah, I mean, on the mass co-op, I would understand things like 16, 20, 30,
10 or more players,
10 or more player
co-op.
And I mean, there are always these industry trends. We had this with this trend with games like PUBG and so on, where we started the trend along.
I've been playing a game recently called Hell Let Loose, which is 32v32.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely insane. That is co-op, because you're trying to push each other's lines back. One's trying to advance, the other one's trying to force them out. And the game can go on as long as it takes. And essentially, if it's like a stalemate in the middle, it'll just continue being a stalemate until one of you has managed to break through. And that requires team-based. Like you have a set amount of medics, you have a set like one sniper, you have a set amount of like riflemen and engineers and things like that, and you work together as groups in order to push the advancing line back. So I would like to see more of those, but I don't want the whole industry to be revolved around them.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually when you have those trends, you have like a massively successful game, like a Palworld, and then you follow up with the trend, and people and the industry tries to play catch up, and then rarely ever something super exciting comes out. But with co-op games, I feel like maybe not mass co-op games, but co-op games definitely is a trend. If you look at some of the biggest single-player games that came out recently, when you look at Avatar, you can play it in co-op. You look at Suicide Squad, you can play it in co-op, and so on. We already kind of have a trend towards co-op, because the industry knows, playing with friends is fun. It also sells you into selling, helps to sell more copies, because if you and I want to play Suicide Squad together, we both have to get it. You know what I mean? So yeah, good question though. Good question. Dave Ramos sends in a question. again related to the Xbox handheld. Assuming all the standard stuff, 1 terabyte SSD, etc. What is your personal price ceiling for an Xbox handheld that runs Xbox games natively, e.g., not a Windows handheld? In other words, what is the most you'd be willing to pay for such a device?
600.
So I bought the ROG Ally at 800. But yeah, I think if you ask
as well, this is
if you
because
ask us,
the Xbox handheld is meant to be a mass consumer, whereas
exactly,
the ROG Ally and,
yeah, like,
and the Steam Deck aren't.
If I answered the question directly, what would I personally be willing to pay for an Xbox handheld? That's definitely a lot more than what would probably make the device a success, because I really want it. So that's probably not the price point that you should look for. Like I said earlier, if you think about this Xbox handheld as the low tier SKU of the next gen.
But also what you could look at as well is, especially if it plays natively.
Yeah.
If you're launching a native handheld that is more capable than Nintendo Switch, you're already going into a territory where if you launch with games that are higher quality, that perform better, and you have a handheld device that is around that, maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but like Switch-ish price, and you're playing native Xbox games on it, that significantly outshine what Nintendo is doing, then you've got a different market that you're entering into it entirely.
Absolutely. And I think that would absolutely make sense. So the next Switch probably somewhere 400-500 euro price point or dollar. And
I think it'll be 450. I think it'll be bang in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch, the first Switch launched, I think, at 400, if I remember correctly. So I don't think it will be any cheaper than that, obviously. And considering the development of chip prices and inflation and everything that happened over the last years, 450, maybe even 500. And I think that's also a very good price point for an Xbox handheld in this range, 500. Because that would allow you to pack in enough specs to actually run those games natively, because that's one thing you have to consider. When you look at the Series S, as cool as this little man is, we have also seen developers struggle with this lower spec'd console. Think about the thing that happened with Baldur's Gate, for instance. So you have to obviously dial down the specs when you talk about a handheld. And all games are developed not just for consoles. There is no such thing as an Xbox console exclusive anymore. Every game that comes out on Xbox, the first-party games are obviously also built for PC, and every third-party game is built anyway for PC. So all games on Xbox are built to be scaled across multiple specs. So, but you still don't want to go too low in performance for developers to really struggle to let the next Elder Scrolls run on natively on there or whatnot. You know what I mean? So you have to think about that. Then on the other hand, Xbox can subsidize the hardware a lot better. That's also why we see the Steam Deck being so much cheaper than the direct competitors, the Lenovo and ROG Allies and so on, because Steam can subsidize the hardware. They don't have to make a profit off of the hardware because they make the money back on software sales. Same would, of course, go for Xbox, you know? And Asus doesn't make a single cent if you buy a game on Steam or on anything. So they have to make the profits off of the actual hardware sales. And that's obviously in favor for Xbox. Nintendo also always tries to sell the consoles at a hardware profit margin. Yeah, that's why we got the so low spec Switch at 400, because they wanted to make a proper margin off of the hardware sales. Xbox and PlayStation typically don't do that. They make the money back with software sales, and the same would go, of course, for the Xbox handheld. So I think a $500 price point overall in that ballpark totally would make sense. You would have enough hardware to be able to actually let the games run on the device natively. And yeah, but man, just thinking about an Xbox handheld that runs the games natively, I would so be digging that. That would actually be like a real reason to get into the Xbox console ecosystem, if you ask me. Because then you have the option to take your games on the go with you. If you want the beefy hardware, you get the regular stationary console, and you get your games across then all devices that you actually have, like your portable console for on the go, the bigger one for under the TV, and if you want to play on PC, then you play the games there. It's like that would actually totally make sense in my personal opinion. So let's see. It's a little bit more than rumors right now, right? That they are actually working on that. So we shall see, man. I still believe that maybe the interpretation of all those console handheld talks is maybe wrong, because everyone thinks about this Xbox handheld as the second SKU to the next gen. But I could also see a world where they bring out such a handheld during this gen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, man, we shall see. TJ sends in another super chat and says all games should have the option for one person to join the campaign for co-op. I don't think that every game would need that. There are games, because if you have co-op in there, you have to design the game around that possibility. And there are simply certain things in game design you can't do if you have the game designed just for really one player. So, but I also do love co-op games, totally. But not every game needs to be that. I'm playing Banishers right now, and it is awesome. And this is a game that is simply designed around being played solo, and it is fantastic. So, yeah, Dutch. But that brings us already to the end of this show. It has been an absolute blast here today. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined us here live today. As always, you guys are absolutely awesome. And if you are listening on the podcast services, also a big shout out to you guys. I want to say a very special thanks for all the super chats that came in today. Super appreciate that, TJ. And of course, a big thank you to all the channel members that do support the channel. It helps a lot, and we appreciate you guys. But Dutch, let everyone know what you've coming up and what you're working on, man.
Yeah, indeed. So nothing other than the indie showcase, of course, which is in April. Nothing substantial, just podcasting and game streaming. Of course, when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out, I'll be streaming that. Before that, I'll just be having fun, and when I've got the time and when I'm not absolutely exhausted from work, I'll be doing some game streams. But yeah,
Good
that's all
stuff.
I'll be doing.
Good stuff. So yeah, I'm working on something for the podcast. Don't want to reveal too much just yet, but expect some changes coming to the podcast. I don't know whether we will be able to share that already next week or whether it will be in 2 weeks. Really depends on how much time I can squeeze in between family, work, and actual gaming. But yeah, some cool changes coming to the podcast, man. Some really cool changes. You already got a good insight in what's coming. So super excited about that. But other than that, yeah, we will be back next week at the regular time. And again, a big thank you to all you guys who joined us here today. You guys enjoy your games. There are so many out there right now. Dead Island 2 just dropped in Game Pass, which is super cool. If you got the chance, play Banishers. You will not regret it. It's fantastic. But most importantly, just enjoy whatever and wherever you're playing. And we see you guys next week. And don't forget to game on.